So back to Hank Sank. Just little versions of stuff that I've been pondering on it and my passion for it. Um, I saw a film the other day. It was a great demonstration of the kinds of approach to performance that some people just seem to do naturally. Um, Ben Mendelsohn in in a film otherwise not that interesting. Shailene Woodley's in it. She's always good value. And it's uh, To Catch a Killer. It's called uh, Amazon, I think. And it's good script and stuff. And Mendelssohn plays this chief inspector, let's call it. I think that's probably an English term, but you know what I mean. A chief inspector in a police force. And some very rather gruesome murders are being committed. And I suppose he's an eccentric, and he's in trouble with the higher ups all the time. He's an archetype. He's one of those that we see a lot in, or they attempt a lot in films. He's the maverick. He's the great intuitive. Shailene does Shailene. She's a younger woman police officer who seems troubled and has various things going on in her own life. And I think there's a reference to her being suicidal, and so she's all those things, probably on several spectrums and stuff like. But he sees her, and he recognizes her gifts, and brings her into his team to investigate these murders. And there's a scene. It's a scene that's attempted often. That this trickster type, this charismatic type, makes a big speech when he takes over the case, and it's the speech that gathers everyone together and amalgamizes them all and incites them all to deeds beyond the call of duty and stuff like that. And a million actors will do that a million different ways, and he does it in the way that is totally effective because he totally owns it. He's not demonstrating that he is that guy. He is that guy, and he does that without any of the usual tricks. It's not narcissistic. There are very few tricks in the performance. He's just very committed to it, and it's the commitment that becomes the charisma. So that's just a pretext for the kind of stuff, and it becomes classical big in that way, because a lot of classical plays, Shakespeare and the Greeks, but Shakespeare really seems to function around that. He seems to have created a lot of that in his stuff. So anyway, my thing about Henry, and the reason why I got interested in him, is I have seen several productions. I liked Hiddleston, and as I said, I really liked Kit Harington in the part. There's the famous Olivia. There's the famous Branagh. I don't like the Branagh one, not because I don't think he's wonderful, but I don't see him as a rugby captain. And for instance, I guess one of the earlier speeches, he seems quite watchful, which connects him to Hal a lot. I read about Prince Hal, Henry, the young Henry and young son of Henry IV, and at a very young age he was militant, and he goes off to fight the Scots, I believe, which comes up in the play. And the story goes that he was shot in the head with an arrow that went in here, somewhere under his eye, and to the back of his skull, but it didn't kill him. And a revolutionary surgeon in the English army extracted this arrow, and it had to be done very slowly. It's a fascinating story. But anyway, throwing stuff a bit like that into the portrayal, it makes me think of a sort of a prodigy, a battlefield prodigy, possibly in terms of his own fighting prowess, in a sort of Alexander Achilles type of way, but an awareness that he's particularly good at a certain kind of a thing. I don't think it brings him great joy. I don't think he loves battle, but he's good at it. And I think he has an awareness of that. So we come to once more into the breach, dear friends, once more. I'll close up the wall up with our English dead, which seems to me that if he appears on the battlefield, and it's not going well on the battlefield, he, as a warrior of great instinctive powers, he shouts at them. If you don't jump back in there, that breach in the wall of Harfleur, I think it is going to be filled up with all of you. And I think he's railing at them. And you got this in peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Stop being a bunch of pussies. Stiffen it, and then there's this fascinating imitation of the tiger. You stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard-favored rage, then lend the eye a terrible aspect, let pry through the portage of the head like the brass cannon, let the brow o'erwhelm it as fearfully as doth a galled rock, or hang at the jutty his confounded base, swilled with the wild and wasteful ocean. Now set the teeth, and stretch the nostril wide, hold hard the breath, and bend up every spirit to his full height. Period. It's all one sentence. On, you noblest English, whose blood is... It's a complete change, it seems. And I think in the imitation of the tiger, I think he's doing that rather Tom Hardy thing of becoming the tiger. He becomes possessed. I imagine the rain's pouring down and he's just standing there getting drenched and roaring through this bit. Because I've seen it done. You run around and watch the little YouTube videos of Henry V, amateur, semi-amateur, even famous productions. And in this particular speech is so much shouting that one particular video that I watched, the other actors who are clanking around with their swords and shields doing their thing. Well, he's shouting at them. And at one point he keeps, because it's a long speech, and he keeps doing this. So that the tone from, imitate the action of the tiger drops straight into, on, you noblest English, whose blood is, he keeps shouting. And the other actors were kind of they slowed down a little bit, probably forgetting a couple of blows that the fight director had given them. And they looked at him like, are you fucking nuts? Why are you still shouting? You've done your business. And it's one of those things, I think, with Shakespeare's in general, but this one in particular, is that you've got these walls of text, these poems, these quite amazing speeches, monologues, and long speeches to other people on the stage, not just to the audience. And it seems that many actors just gee themselves up and get red in the face and blast through them. And it just struck me that there's something so plaintive about on you noblest English, whose blood is fat from fathers of war proof. He's remembering something. It's something that's almost melancholy to him, perhaps, and so it's in another tone. And I think he expects to hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit to his full height, and then say, He could say, then the game's afoot, halt, but follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry God for Harry, England, and St. George. He could do that. He could cut straight from his full height to the last line of the speech. But he doesn't. He's got this other thing he's got to say. And I think that thing of looking at them as I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining from the start. He might come out of his reverie in the speech and just look at this line of, I guess these are the yeomen at this point, these eager young men who have been inspired by him now, and then he relents again. So it has all these variations, and I think this Once More Into the Breach is like he's in a trance, the pre-battle trance, and he it is one of those great speeches that all kinds of movies have cribbed. Mel Gibson and Braveheart and stuff. Like, he does a very effective job, I think, with it. This galvanizing the army, the troops, however many there are. If there's 5 guys on stage or 1,500 in a film shot, it doesn't really matter. I do think that the idea that they're close, he's not trying to reach all of them, is helpful. So you don't have to be shouting as if you're shouting to a huge field, or you're in the Olivier Theatre in London. You have to fill that ghastly space with your noise. I think it's persuasion and that. Yeah. So it's on you noblest English, whose blood is fed from fathers of war-proof fathers, that like so many Alexanders, having these parts from morn till even fought, and sheathed their swords for lack of argument, dishonour not your mothers, now attest that those whom you called fathers did beget you. Be copy now to men of grosser blood, and teach them how to war. And then he speaks to another group. Maybe those on the noblest English have started marching off, and you, good yeomen, which is another group, the ones who fire the bows, whose limbs are made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not, for there's then none of you so mean and base that hath not noble lustre in your eyes. It makes me think of a man who is fearful. He's in a war. He's leading the war. The next 2 great speeches engage with this again. What's he that wishes so, my cousin Westmoreland? No, my fair cousin. If we are enough to, if we are meant to die, we are enough to do our country good, or whatever it is. And then becomes St. Crispin's Day. This idea that it's serious business, and he is taking himself through a process. Himself is a constant sense in all of the plays, but in this one particularly, of a young man involved in self-discovery through what he's doing, and that's part of what is going on. So that notion that he doesn't know where he's going with this speech, he's reacting to something. They're withdrawing from the breach at Harfleur. They're cowering, and he comes on. He says, "You got to get back in there." And then maybe they all stop, and he says, "Look, in there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger, and summon up your that kind of thing." Yeah, that's all. There'll be more.